The North Caucasus Railway in Russia is paralyzed due to a massive drone attack. Samara is under massive bombardment. All oil refineries have been bombed. Ukraine is joining the European Union, but this accession will be a shadow one for now. Beijing has entered the war, a shocking revelation. China is involved in making 90% of Russian drones. Sensational inside info: peace talks with Iran fell through because Trump talked too much. Putin is going all in. The Kremlin has imposed a crushing tax on Russian oligarchs. The elites are starting a revolt. Ukrainian underwater drones are already in the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian ships are going to the bottom. It happened. The latest Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles are shocking the world and changing the course of the war. A new front: Lukashenko has given the order. The Belarusian army is already on the border with the Chernobyl zone. Zelensky has challenged Putin. The meeting place is Istanbul. The Kremlin gave a cowardly response. A tough showdown. Bonya is splitting the swamp. The Z-Patriots are pushing against Solovyov. The robbery of the century in Russia: a homeless man robbed a pharmacy with a toy gun. Greetings, my name is KATERINA NESTERENKO, and right now for the main news, but first like this video and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose each other in the vastness of YouTube. Another restless night in Russia. Drones from the Alpha Special Operations Center of the Security Service of Ukraine attacked the Russian Samara oil refinery station on the night of April 21st, which is vital for exporting Russian Urals oil. According to preliminary data, the drones damaged 5 tanks with a capacity of nearly 20,000 cubic meters of crude oil. A large-scale fire broke out at the station after the attack. The governor of the Samara region, Vyacheslav Fedoryshov, confirmed the drone attack on an industrial enterprise in the region. He claims that there were no deaths or injuries as a result of the attack. The Samara pumping station is part of the Samara-Tikhoretsk oil pipeline. This is where high and low sulfur oil from various fields is mixed to form the Urals export grade. The oil then goes to Russian ports, including the port of Novorossiysk. Striking such hub stations reduces the Russian Federation's ability to form export oil shipments and fulfill contract obligations, which means it reduces the aggressor's income. In addition, some friendly drones visited Novocherkassk in the Rostov region. The North Caucasus Railway announced a suspension of traffic due to outside interference.
Tell me about it. Whoa! What's that? Oh, it's flying.
Where?
What's that, maybe? There.
It's flying right here. And there goes a rocket. Get down.
And more good news: the fire at the Tuapse oil refinery after the drone attack has been going on for 5 days now. As they say, burn, burn bright so it doesn't go out. Like, if you agree. Reading the comments under previous episodes, I see that many people watch us from Europe, Kazakhstan, Moldova, and even the United States of America. We Ukrainians are grateful for your support and proud to have such sensible viewers. Comment below this video to tell us which country you're watching from and if people there support our fight against the evil empire. I always enjoy reading your comments, but for now, let's continue. Next, the most interesting part. Damaged warships, burning oil refineries, ports and factories, all in just a few days. The armed forces of Ukraine continue to triumphantly destroy the enemy's military and industrial facilities. 2 more Russian warships have followed the cruiser Moskva to the bottom.
Oh, what is that? Vanya! Oh my god.
Quiet, 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 quiet.
Well, that's it. It's over.
Grandma, it's okay.
That's it, Vanya. It's a disaster.
It's a total mess.
Ukrainian intelligence has deprived Russia of 2 more large landing ships. The Project 775 landing ship Yamal and the Project 1171 landing ship Nikolai Filchenkov. At the time of the attack, the vessels were in Sevastopol Bay. The ship Yamal was built in 1988. It can carry up to 500 tons of cargo, specifically armored vehicles and troops. The Nikolai Filchenkov was built in 1975. The ship is capable of carrying up to 1,000 tons of cargo. This allows it to transport dozens of armored vehicles and a large landing force. Or rather, it used to allow that. Both ships are now out of commission. The estimated cost of the losses is around $150 million.
Don't take pictures, buddy. You hear me, friend.
Well, and this is Tuapse. Here, Ukraine is cutting off Putin's flow of petrodollars.
Look at how many tons are there, of course. Oh my God, oh God. And the tankers are sitting in the sea with nowhere to go.
There really is nowhere to go for all Russians, because karma always catches up with its owner. And in this case, war always returns to the one who started it. And yet Russians still don't understand why this is all happening to them.
I wanted to live by the sea with my child! The sea is all covered in this fuel oil. Everything is ruined. Where can we even go? Drones are flying. Everything is being destroyed.
Look, guys, just tell me why. Really, why can't we ever live in a time of peace?
As for Tuapse, the Kremlin should start forgetting about the existence of this oil refinery. Ukrainian drones seem intent on wiping the refinery off the face of the earth. And in our subjective opinion, they are succeeding quite well. Tuapse was hit for the second time in a week. The previous fire was only extinguished after 3 full days.
We absolutely won.
Just yesterday, Russian emergency workers reported the fire out, only to have to start working all over again. And this time it might take significantly longer to put out the flames. According to OSINT analysts, at least 11 separate fire points have been identified at the site. Ukrainian defenders are targeting not just Russian oil facilities, but also sites within the Russian military-industrial complex. Yesterday, Ukrainian sanctions paid a visit to the Atlant Aero plant in Taganrog, located in the Rostov region. This fiery surprise was delivered by Ukrainian Neptune missiles.
So quiet. So quiet.
Atlant Aero carries out the full cycle of design, manufacturing and testing for Molniya-type strike and reconnaissance drones, as well as components for Orion UAVs. As a result of the attack on the facility, at least 2 workshops were damaged. Drone sanctions were also in full effect yesterday. Unmanned aerial vehicles visited the Yeysk seaport, which is located near Taganrog. The Russians took another hit there as well.
This is a small but significant port on the Sea of Azov. Every year, between 3 and 4.5 million tons of cargo pass through it. Mainly, it is grain, coal, petroleum products, and various metals. It is located right next to Taganrog, about 60 kilometers away. But it is through this very port that a portion of stolen Ukrainian grain from occupied territories is shipped. What about Putin? Remember how he chuckled? Saying the Sea of Azov is now Russia's internal sea. Isn't that what he says? Well, the Sea of Azov is now an internal sea for Ukrainian drones and missiles.
And now for news from the front. The chief of the Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, has once again claimed the alleged full occupation of the Luhansk region by Russian troops. According to Gerasimov, during March and April, the Russian Armed Forces took control in the Special Military Operations Zone of 34 settlements and about 700 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory.
The liberation of the Luhansk People's Republic has been fully completed. Currently, the offensive by formations and military units of the joint grouping of forces is being conducted in all directions.
Meanwhile, the Third Army Corps refutes Gerasimov's statement about the Luhansk region, as they continue to hold positions near the villages of Nadia, Novoyahorivka and Rekivka. The situation is commented on by a representative of the Third Army Corps, Alexander Borodin.
Yes, the Russians are constantly carrying out offensive actions. That is about 150 or more assault operations over 6 months. And they continue to waste a huge amount of personnel, strength, and resources. But Nadia, Novoyahorivka, and the Rekivka area remain Ukrainian. This is the Luhansk region. Therefore, the Russian claims are not valid.
The Russians claim to have captured the village of Zibin in the Kharkiv region. This was reported by the 16th Army Corps, but footage of the invaders' elimination shows otherwise. And these images are truly heartbreaking. A video of a 3-ton Russian aerial bomb hitting Kostiantynivka has appeared online. An entire block of high-rise buildings also was leveled to the ground. This is what Russian terrorists call liberation. I never tire of admiring the courage and heroism of Ukrainian warriors. They hold the front against a massive horde that significantly outnumbers them. So I urge you to support the AFU, and if you can't do it financially, write words of support in the comments. I know they are watching us. A brilliant special operation by Ukrainian hackers. This time, hackers breached a private meeting of the Russian Ministry of Industry and Trade, revealing 90% of Russian UAV electronics are made in China. Ukrainian prankster Yevhen Volnov published part of a recording from a closed meeting discussing UAV production for the war against Ukraine. Off camera, a meeting participant asks about the allowed percentage of foreign raw materials in drones and complains that Russia even has to buy copper wires from China.
If you look at just the electronics, 90% of it is always foreign raw materials. It's simply not produced in Russia.
That's Chinese plastic, right? Because there is no Russian plastic.
Then Ukrainian hackers joined the audio conference.
Yeah, a question. How do you determine the degree of Russianness of those Chechen dicks that were fucking your mothers? Well, roughly. Is there some kind of formula?
Could you please turn it off for me? I would really appreciate it if you could do that. Thank you.
Or are you okay with the lack of Russianness? And all of you are being filmed, so gentlemen, watch your backs. Yes, you, Boldy, especially.
This message is addressed to Alexei Serdyuk, head of the UAV Systems and Robotics Department at the Russian Ministry of Industry and Trade and former deputy to Manturov. After this, he asked an assistant to end the conference. To Serdyuk's right sits Alexander Plotnikov, another official from the ministry's drone department. In the far right corner is 29-year-old Danil Abulov, who, according to the conference contacts, handles coordination between drone manufacturers, the Ministry of Defense, and public organizations. Putin's People's Front. The department has not commented on the leaked recording. So what do you think of this special operation by our hackers? Right, don't hold back in the comments. Berlin and Paris are offering Ukraine an interim EU status, which will be the shortest path to full membership in the European Union. The Financial Times reports on this. At the same time, it's reported that most countries rejected the European Commission's idea of accelerated EU membership for Ukraine. Germany and France are offering Ukraine a symbolic interim status during the country's preparation for full membership in the European Union, which excludes access to agricultural subsidies, the common budget, and voting rights. According to the publication, Germany is pushing for an interim status of an associate member. It will allow Ukraine to participate in EU summits, but won't give it voting rights or access to the common budget. France calls such interim membership the status of an integrated state. According to the publication's sources, the European Union is unlikely to offer Ukraine a broader interim status. In the Ukrainian government, such a model is called shadow membership, an anonymous official in Kyiv noted in a conversation with the Financial Times. France and Germany emphasize that interim membership is not an alternative to full membership, but represents the shortest path to it. And what do you think about the initiative of France and Germany? And a bit more about Russia. The Kremlin is manipulating economic data. Real inflation across the border is 3 times higher than the official rate. Swedish intelligence reported this in a comment to the Financial Times. The head of the Swedish Military Intelligence and Security Service, Thomas Nilsson, told the publication that Russia systematically manipulates statistics to convince Ukraine's Western allies that the Russian economy has withstood the pressure of sanctions and military spending. Citing intelligence data, he said that the Russian authorities significantly understate information about inflation and the budget deficit. According to Nielsen, the real inflation rate in the Russian Federation is closer to the key interest rate of 15% than to the official estimate of the Central Bank of the Russian Federation of 5.86%. In addition, Russia understates the size of the budget deficit by about $30 billion. The head of Sweden's military intelligence noted that the weakening economy of the Russian Federation is far from recovery, even despite the rise in oil prices due to the war in the Middle East.
The Russian economy can develop in only one of 2 scenarios, long-term decline or shock. In any case, it is heading towards the financial catastrophe.
In this regard, Sweden calls on European countries to adopt the sanctions package against Russia blocked in Hungary and to strengthen support for Ukraine. Like if you stand in solidarity with Sweden. In Russia, oligarchs are being taxed additionally for problems in the economy and the war. This was reported by Ukrainian intelligence. It is reported that the Russian authorities plan to introduce a new tax on business windfall profits against the backdrop of a budget deficit. The tax rate could be up to 20%. We are talking about taxing that part of companies' profits for 2025 that exceeds the average level for 2018 and 2019. It was this period that was used as the base for collecting windfall profits for 2021 and 2022.
Despite the recent offer from several Russian oligarchs to voluntarily contribute some of their wealth to the national budget in order to help fund the ongoing war effort, the Kremlin is still planning to hit large companies and major corporations with an additional extra windfall tax. By the end of 2025, Russian authorities plan to introduce a new business windfall tax amid a growing budget deficit and financial pressure related to the war against Ukraine. The tax rate could reach up to 20%, which is twice as high as during the previous campaign in 2023.
The initiative for the new levy emerged against the backdrop of a worsening financial situation in Russia. Economists note that even potential extra profits from energy exports will not be able to cover the budget deficit. Against this backdrop, the government is forced to seek new sources to replenish the treasury, particularly from businesses that still remain profitable. Well, what can I say? It's definitely going to get worse. So don't you relax over there in Russia. This is only the beginning. President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that Ukraine is ready to join international security efforts in the Strait of Hormuz, specifically through maritime drones and expertise. Zelensky noted that Ukraine can contribute both in the field of protection and in organizing vessel escorts. This refers in particular to the possible use of Ukrainian maritime drones, such as Magura and Sea Baby, which have already demonstrated their effectiveness during the war.
If Middle Eastern countries have our drone deal in place, then our advanced maritime drones are sent to those regions, so really, anything could potentially appear there at any time. As for protection, we can be there. As for the convoy, we can help.
According to Zelensky, the issue of stability in this strategically important region has already been discussed at an international summit attended by representatives from Europe and Asia, as well as partners from the Pacific region and Australia. As part of further work, a meeting of military representatives is planned in London, to which the Ukrainian side has also been invited. Then what do you think of such news from the president? Write in the comments, I'll definitely read them. Now that's news. American President Donald Trump personally derailed the signing of a peace agreement with Iran. According to CNN insiders, the agreement to end the war in the Middle East was very close to being signed until US President Donald Trump started talking too much and angered Iran. According to CNN, at the end of the negotiation week, the parties approached a compromise, but the situation was sharply complicated by the American leader's social media posts and his comments in the media. Trump tried to negotiate through the press, posting about the talks on social media and speaking with the media. The American president spoke publicly about the terms of the peace agreement with Iran, which had not yet been finalized. Specifically, he claimed that Tehran was supposedly ready to hand over enriched uranium, halt its nuclear program indefinitely, and had agreed to almost all of Washington's demands. Iranian officials were quick to deny those words. Tehran stated that a number of key points had not been agreed upon and a new round of talks had not yet been approved.
The Iranians did not like that the US president conducted negotiations through social media and gave the impression that they had already signed off on decisions on issues they hadn't yet agreed to and which are unpopular among their people. To this, at home, one official close to the negotiation process told CNN.
The truce between the United States and Iran ends on the evening of April 22nd US time, which gives an additional 24 hours of negotiations before Trump must decide whether to carry out his threat to blow up Iranian bridges and power plants. The US president has stated that it is very unlikely he will extend the truce any further. Well then, place your bets, everyone. Will the truce between the United States and Iran be continued? Direct talks between Zelensky and Putin with the participation of Trump and Erdogan. The venue is Turkey. This proposal was made by the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry. Will this plan be implemented, and what will the result be?
Negotiations about the war could reach a new level. Ukraine is taking the initiative into its own hands.
Zelensky is not refusing bilateral or trilateral meetings. And when has he ever refused them? Never. He was planning to fly to Istanbul back then, if you remember, in May of last year, and he did. But Putin refused. And then the talk turned to representatives, delegations, and so on. Next, Hungary, then Budapest when all that was happening in Anchorage, and after that, when it was suggested, Zelensky said, "I'm ready."
And despite a series of refusals from Muscovy, Kyiv is not veering off the diplomatic track. On the contrary, it is increasing pressure in the negotiation sphere, promoting the idea of a meeting at the highest level, a direct dialogue between Volodymyr Zelensky and the Russian dictator Putin. It is this format that today remains virtually the only one where final rather than interim decisions can be made.
We are ready for a meeting of leaders in Turkey in the Zelensky-Putin format with the participation of Erdogan and Trump. We recently conveyed this signal to our Turkish partners. Turkey plays an important role in peace efforts.
At the same time, the key problem of the negotiation process remains unchanged. After all, according to the head of the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, Moscow continues to avoid direct dialogue.
They demand their own way, without seeking a compromise. And why aren't they seeking a compromise? What gives them grounds to be so stubborn? Well, apparently the situation is such that they cannot achieve territorial gains through military means. In the Donetsk region, not at all. Which means they have to negotiate, but they don't want to negotiate.
And in this complex configuration, Turkey enters the game. A country that has repeatedly demonstrated its ability to act as a mediator in negotiations where other diplomatic channels have reached a dead end. From grain deals to complex behind-the-scenes negotiations. That is why Kyiv is betting on the mediation of Recep Erdogan as one of the few leaders who maintains communication channels with both Ukraine and Russia.
Trump is no help here. He's busy with other matters, Iran. Erdogan would like to act as such a mediator, but here he cannot play a decisive role at all. Good relations do not help here. It is not like Trump asked, Erdogan asked, and Putin just agreed, or even Xi Jinping. No, it will not work like that. Putin must be forced to negotiate, you see? He must have no other choice, and then yes, there is a chance.
But today's diplomacy is taking place in conditions where time works more against negotiations than in their favor. Global crises and the redistribution of attention of key players, including the situation around Iran, are gradually narrowing the window of opportunity for a quick peace.
The Kremlin may have a certain illusion that everything is starting to improve, and they will try, well, at least as they call it, to squeeze Ukraine, in the sense that, let's be honest, the price of oil has gone up. And if just a month ago we were discussing that the Russian oil industry is in a desperate situation when often oil costs less than the cost of its production in Russia, now everything has changed. Unfortunately, his part in this process was also played by Donald Trump.
For the first time since 2014, against the country that unleashed the largest and bloodiest war in the 21st century, were eased sanctions.
If Donald Trump showed his readiness to increase pressure on Russia, to maximize pressure on Russia through sanctions and through the provision of long-range weapons to Ukraine, then I think the position of Russia would have been different. Now, in fact, Putin perceives any concessions as weakness and therefore is unlikely to agree to any, arrangements.
Thus, today's negotiations are increasingly turning into a complex political construct where one side is open and ready, while the other continues to drag out the process, playing with the lives of millions of people. And against this background, the main question sounds more and more acute. Is the Russian-Ukrainian war even capable of moving from the mode of endless diplomatic attempts to the moment of decision-making?
Putin has opened Pandora's box. His war against Ukraine has made Ukraine an absolute world leader in the production of drones, successfully destroying the Kremlin's army and paramilitary infrastructure, even far from the front line. And we have not even started yet. After all, part of the 90 billion credit from Europe, which should be unfrozen as early as Wednesday, will go to the production of UAVs specifically.
Such a war. They are simply overtaking us. We are trying like turtles, but a cheetah is overtaking us.
Ukraine has sharply intensified its campaign of strikes against the enemy's rear.
Wow.
The pace of the offensive has changed. Ukraine is feverishly ramping up its capabilities. Their concept of a drone wall and robot-led offensives has worked.
The end of 2025 and especially the start of 2026 brought a good haul. In just the last few weeks, our defenders destroyed a cluster of BM-30 Smerch in the Russian rear. In Russian-occupied Mariupol, Ukrainian drones struck a Russian Panzer S-1. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, Ukrainian drones destroyed a peerless Sonsepyok. This is a rare enemy MLRS that uses thermobaric munitions. The estimated cost is $15 million. Another Ukrainian record. For the first time in human history, a Shahed was downed by an interceptor drone launched from an uncrewed sea platform. Artificial intelligence technology is already being actively used on the battlefield. Drones are managing to skillfully evade enemy fire. Drone operators have begun hitting targets inside Russia from distances of up to 500 kilometers. Thanks to a new internet-based guidance system that allows drones to be controlled far from the battlefield,
you can take off from any unprepared sites and land there. It could be urban areas, it could be a field, basically anything not intended for launching aircraft. This provides a tactical advantage and ensures the safety of the crew.
Against this backdrop, Ukraine is simultaneously trying to scale up the production of such systems. Ukraine is increasingly offsetting the shortage of costly long-range missiles and traditional aviation with cheaper, scalable drone solutions.
They can be mass-produced. Large factories are not required for this. Even garage-based production is sufficient. To understand the scale, for the cost of 100 modern tanks, you can essentially get Terminator 2-level technology. And this is no longer science fiction.
The commander-in-chief of the AFU Syrskyi says that Ukraine truly has much to be proud of.
Reconnaissance and strike UAVs of fixed-wing and multi-rotor types, FPV drones, radio-controlled and fiber-optic drones, interceptor UAVs, and ground robotic systems. In all these areas, we have much to be proud of. But at the same time, there is work to be done to solve existing problems.
The first tranche of military aid to Ukraine under the €90 billion EU loan will be used to purchase Ukrainian-made drones.
For 2026, Ukraine has requested defense assistance totaling €28 billion. The initial product delivery plan focuses on drones from Ukraine's advanced defense industry.
The Ukrainian defense industrial complex has become a top topic in the global media. The war with Iran showed the full danger of Shaheds and the importance of protection against them. Ukraine has already received requests from 11 countries for the supply of domestic drones. This primarily concerns states in the Middle East and Persian Gulf region, as well as the prospect of entering Caucasian markets.
In this drone deal, there will be at least 10 different agreements regarding various exports of Ukrainian weapons, planned co-production, building our production lines both in Ukraine and in other states, new technologies that we are developing together with various states in which they invest. And there is an agreement on funding for a year of the corresponding volume and a fixed number of years.
Separately, Zelensky announced the start of active cooperation with European countries.
Work has already begun with Germany, Italy, Norway, Sweden, and the Netherlands. Of course, we have good relations with Great Britain and France. I am sure that all of this will happen there as well.
Meanwhile, on the battlefield, there is a competition between Ukrainian drones and Russian ones, which they assemble from Chinese parts.
Which we assemble entirely ourselves, but from foreign raw materials, so to speak. And in Russia, purchasing this, well, it doesn't seem possible. So that's the thing. It's practically impossible to do, even if we take some copper wires, which, as everyone knows, and I think my colleagues won't let me lie, are manufactured exclusively in China. So if you just take the electronics, that is 90%. It's always foreign raw materials for us. They simply don't produce it in Russia.
That's already Chinese plastic, right? Because there is no Russian plastic. Well, go on. Finish what you were saying, okay?
You have no plastic, Dmitry Anatolievich. Come on, stop it.
Specialized units of the Ukrainian Defense Forces are competing with the Russian occupiers. Following the example of the Ukrainians, they have also begun to develop drone troops.
We have no other option available to us but to significantly increase both the power and the overall efficiency of our advanced unmanned systems if we want to succeed and ultimately win in this ongoing confrontation.
Day after day, thanks to our defenders, the whole world has learned about Ukraine's unique developments. And in Russia, the risk zone has gone far beyond the front lines, causing fear and bewilderment among the Kremlin's mouthpieces.
What is all this for? Everything should be straightforward, boom. If necessary, learn from the enemy. Look at the control system. The American stuff, what the Ukrainians are implementing now, take all the best, don't be shy.
While the Kremlin is in a frenzy, our warriors are doing everything to disrupt logistics, fuel infrastructure, and military hubs of the enemy in order to win this war.
Belarus is preparing to open a second front in Ukraine. Former Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba is already openly stating this. How likely is a new threat of invasion from the Republic of Belarus? We'll tell you more about this next.
Lukashenko is preparing for an attack.
There can be no such thing as a time of peace. We are preparing for war.
Minsk is ramping up activity under the Kremlin's watchful eye.
We are their closest allies.
Russia still views Belarus as a tool in the war against Ukraine. This was stated by former Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. In his view, this is evidenced by large-scale military maneuvers, the reinforcement of Belarus with Russian air defense systems, and increasingly close direct interaction between the Russian and Belarusian armies, the call-up of reserve officers, and so on.
Everything he's saying, yes, it is indeed happening. Yes, there are movements of Belarusian military personnel. Yes, firing positions and artillery are being set up, roads are being repaired, and so on and so forth. But all of this together doesn't mean that Belarus will attack Ukraine.
First of all, the military potential of Belarus is too weak for a war with Ukraine. A shortage of men and equipment, as well as the disarmament of its own army in favor of Russia, makes Belarusian troops uncompetitive on the battlefield.
Because the entire Belarusian army, all of it, from the very first private to the very last generalissimo of the Belarusian army, is approximately 40 to 45,000 people. That's the whole army, including everyone. Pilots, tank crews, logistics, command, adjutants, assistants, and the canteen staff. Everything, that's all of it. So, in general, if we talk about the Belarusian army as a whole, I'm sure it can't fight at all because they have no combat experience.
Furthermore, Minsk is seriously concerned about the fate of its oil refineries, as they are well within reach of Ukrainian strike weapons, while Belarusian air defense forces, in turn, lack combat experience.
From south to north, from west to east, it's approximately 500 kilometers. For Ukrainian drones, which can fly 1,000 to 1,500 kilometers, there are absolutely no unreachable areas on the territory of Belarus. Belarus has nothing to counter us with by shooting down our drones.
Military analysts note that even in a direct clash without massive support from the Russian Federation, the Belarusian army risks being defeated in the shortest possible time.
Even if, let's imagine the worst-case scenario, Lukashenko is broken, Lukashenko is ousted from power, and the Belarusian army, under the command of the Russian military, begins to advance, whether it's in Volyn, the Rivne region, or the Kiev region. I am certain that by the end of the day, Belarus won't have a single oil refinery left, and there are only two. Mozyr near Ukraine and Novopolotsk further away. There won't be a single fuel and lubricant warehouse left, absolutely none at all.
And the third thing Ukraine could do, according to the expert, is send home the Belarusian volunteers who are fighting alongside the armed forces of Ukraine.
Mr. Syrski will pull that small unit from the front lines, the one called the Kastus Kalinowski Regiment. These are Belarusian patriots, Belarusian citizens who are fighting for Ukraine against the Russian Federation. He'll pull them from a specific sector and provide a corridor through Ukrainian territory bordering the Republic of Belarus. He'll load them up with weapons, give them, I don't know, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, whatever, and say, guys, go back home. Your country needs you, your Belarusians, go back home. And then the domino effect will begin. The Kalinowski fighters enter the first village, seize the police station, and distribute weapons to Belarusian citizens, and then they move on to the next village.
Lukashenko continues to play the role of commander-in-chief, faking preparations for combat operations. But all these inspections, locations, and loud threats from generals remain nothing more than propaganda elements that don't change the actual state of affairs.
It's just bravado to show that they're ready, but in reality, we know the Belarusian army is once again stuck in the Soviet Union. Completely. Exercises based on Soviet Union templates, training based on Soviet Union templates. They don't have any drones. I even saw their exercises where they showed Lukashenko how their drone operators fly. They were using a single drone, and they even said, we're simulating hitting the equipment. Do you know how they did it? There wasn't just this drone flying into a tank, one that the Belarusian military had set up. This drone flew into something that wasn't even a cardboard box. It was two posts with a sheet of thin tissue paper stretched between them, a tank drawn on it, and this drone flew through, tearing the paper.
Belarus is capable of nothing without the Russians, and there aren't many enemy troops in the country. And Putin is running out of cannon fodder as well.
The entire reserve of the Russian Federation on the Ukrainian fronts is 58,000 people. Of those, the GUR said just last week that 20,000 were moved toward Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad in that direction. That's 20,000. In any case, well, there are no extra reserves. It's not just about moving people, you have to move mobile hospitals and the equipment they'll use to advance. Yes, obviously it won't be tanks, it'll be some kind of ATVs or buggies, some old vans. But all this needs preparation. I mean, it's not done in a day.
Alexander Lukashenko continues his policy of double standards. Analysts are certain that behind his loud statements lies a desperate attempt to satisfy Putin's appetites without jeopardizing the stability of his own regime. This is the crime of the century. In Vladivostok, a local homeless man attacked a pharmacy, armed with a toy gun. He demanded that the employee hand over money and a pack of bandages. The terrified woman threw a pack of bandages at the criminal and then called the police. They report the repeat offender was caught. The weapon was a toy, but for the previously convicted robber, he still faces a sentence of up to 10 years. He's in pre-trial now. Bloggers who spoke out have faced media humiliation from the Kremlin's aggressive machine.
All these topics that this citizen presents in such a way are well known in the Kremlin and have been addressed from the very first minute. And it's not for this worn-out slut to open her filthy mouth and clutter up the space.
After Solovyov's harassment, Bonya was supported by artists, bloggers, and even participants in the war with Ukraine. Video messages in support of the blogger are appearing en masse on Instagram. She invited women to join the class action lawsuit against the Kremlin propagandist.
I am an elderly woman. I am 46. So it turns out you, Solovyov, are addressing all the women of Russia and saying that they have no right to speak and that they are elderly? I think you look like an enemy of the people in this context.
Bonya was supported by Ekaterina Gordon and showman Nikita Zhigorda, who called Solovyov an evening jerk.
I will stand up for Bonya, and it doesn't matter that she is in Monaco. Many people wrote to me, Katya, she's in Monaco, but you'll be the one jailed. I will stand up for Bonya. Svetka will stand up for me and Lenka for Svetka.
Evening jerk, Volodya Solovyov. How many thoughts he provokes with his attack on the goddess Bonya. Jackal, ghoul, demon, Volodya Solovyov.
Well, and that's all for now. Like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss our next episodes. See you soon.